Paranormal Andy, and Phantom Dark Dave. The Screaming Skull Podcast.
Welcome to the Screaming Skull Podcast, a place where horror fans can feel at home. And my name is Abnormal Andy. I'm just one of your hosts on this spectacular show we have for you tonight. And my co-host is Phantom Dark Dave. Dave, how you doing tonight?
What's up, Andy? I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I think this episode is going to be magic, if I do say so myself.
Oh, and so it begins.
Yeah, so this is kind of continuing on our theme that we started last episode. I don't know, I guess you could call it like fantasy horror or something like that, because the last episode we talked about Wishmaster from 1997, and this episode we're going to be talking about the 1980-ish, 88-ish classic in quotation marks, Warlock, starring Julian Sands, and it's going to be a good conversation. I think it's like both of our first times watching it, I think, so we'll get into that a little bit later, but first, we'll do some horror news.
Horror News.
So, me and Dave, everybody knows that we're a fan of, we like mixing up our fairy tales with our horror, right, Dave?
We do.
Well, remember back in the 90s, and I think you even told me about this, but there was a horror movie called Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh,
right?
I love that movie.
Okay, so get this. There's an article out that says Rumpelstiltskin, the fairy tale, gets a new horror movie this April.
Oh, boy.
So, it says Rumpelstiltskin is back with a brand new update on the terrifying fairy tale. And so they released a trailer. So the director's Andy Edwards. He did Zombie Spring Breakers and Midnight Peep Show. Rumpelstiltskin is premiering at UK's Fright Fest this weekend. So that was back on March 6th.
So it literally just happened.
But it's hitting US VOD on April 8th. And you'll find it on digital in the UK on April 7th. So it looks like it's starring Hannah Baxter E. from Augusta and Escape, Josh Carter from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, and Tarot, and also Adrienne Boucher from The Wheel of Time, The Last Kingdom. And so it says, so whoever Miracle Media is, they say the film breathes new life into the age-old children's story with eye-popping, gnarly special effects and a potty-mouthed female protagonist who isn't your typical damsel in distress. With body humor and devilishly delightful visuals, this new incarnation certainly packs a punch and is sure to permeate your dreams with nightmare fuel. So we kind of get into the story here. It says, once upon a time, a greedy miller promises to marry off his beautiful daughter, Evelyn, to the king. But things don't quite go to plan when his lies are uncovered, and the pair are about to be locked up in a tower forever. So they make a bold promise to the king that Evelina will spin straw into gold using a spinning wheel, but that's easier said than done, and they realize that they've made a promise they can't keep. That is until a mischievous masked creature appears from nowhere with the offer of help, but help comes with a cost. When the woman fulfills the task, the king becomes seduced by greed and wants more gold, so in an act of desperation, she pleads with the fiendish imp and they make a deal, her firstborn child, for more gold. But everyone ends up getting more than they bargained for when the devil gets involved and all hell breaks loose. So yeah, there's a new official trailer for this new Rumpelstiltskin movie.
Sounds like it's gonna suck.
Yeah, and they do acknowledge there was a previous horror movie version of the classic German fairy tale, released way back in 1995. And
that's the one.
So yeah. So I don't know. I might go check it out. I mean, it's probably going to be a direct-to-video thing. So it's not like something that I'm going to rush out to the theater to...
You still haven't seen the 1995 version, have you?
No, I have not. I need to jump on that. I need to see if it's streaming anywhere.
It's not. That's the killer about it. You can rent it on Prime Video for $4. And I'd say if you like the 90s, straight-to-video type horror movies, it's worth the $4.
Oh, yeah.
But man, movies like Pinocchio's Revenge, and then this Rumpelstiltskin, stuff like Night of the Scarecrow, like all those kind of movies just check a special place in my heart. And if you like any of those, they're in the same, vein. You would probably really like it. But if anybody out there hasn't seen Rumpelstiltskin from 1995 and they like Star Trek, especially Deep Space Nine, then there's a special reason to watch it for that too.
So another classic Disney character, I guess, is kind of getting the horror, what do you call it? Glow up, I guess. Is that what the kids say nowadays?
Not my kids.
Okay. So it says a bloodthirsty Bambi goes on a killing spree, a new horror movie trailer. So it says so this first appeared in Consequence. It says Bambi the Reckoning is the latest entry in the Poonaverse horror movie series, and it's received its first trailer, and you'll never think of the children's story the same way again. So it says a grief-stricken Bambi who has mutated to have a mouthful of sharp teeth goes on the prowl after the death of his mother. While on the hunt, the deer goes after some unlucky folks in the woods and vacationing countryside. Using his antlers, Bambi decapitates his prey before tearing into their flesh. Says after a mother and son get in a car wreck, they soon become hunted by Bambi, a mutated, grief-stricken deer on a deadly rampage, seeking revenge for the death of his mother. So it's a twisted take on the 1923 story Bambi: A Life in the Woods, and it's directed by Dan Allen and stars Roxanne McKee, Tom Mulhern, Nicola Wright, Samira Mighty, and Alex Cook. So it's produced by Scott Chambers and Rise Frake Waterfield of Jagged Edge Productions, which has become known for their horror reinterpretations of beloved children's characters who have entered public domain. So, the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and all those kind of movies, same kind of deal.
Actually, we went and saw Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 in theater opening night, and when we did, they actually showed a sneak peek into the Bambi film. So I've seen about 3 or 4 minutes of the Bambi film, and man, it looks pretty heavy on the CGI, so I don't know.
Yeah. I guess there's going to be, after like these Bambi and the next Pinocchio Unstrung movies coming out,
Yep.
All the characters are supposed to unite in a crossover film, Poonaverse Monsters Assemble.
Yeah, take on the Avengers. I kind of have some high hope for the Pinocchio one, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. I'm gonna have to check these out, man. I mean, they sound interesting to me. I haven't seen any of them yet, so definitely have to check those out.
Yeah, maybe you can binge watch all of them once they're all VOD. But I tell you what, Andy, let me tell you about a movie that you have seen, because one of the greatest horror movies of all time, 1975, Jaws. It's making its way back to theater for its 50th year anniversary. Can you believe it? Thing's been out 50 years.
Wow. Yeah, they said 1975?
That's right. And so going into this summer, it's celebrating its 50 years by circling theaters again, and being that neither you or I were around in 1975, I'm looking forward to seeing this in theater for the first time. Have you seen it in theater? I didn't know if they did like a 20, 30 year or anything.
It's possible. No, if I go and see it this time, this will be the first time I see it in theater.
Something really cool is not necessarily in Dallas, but not too far away from here, and a few other locations like Martha's Vineyard and stuff. They're doing the whole Jaws on the water experience where they're showing it outside on the lake, and I'm thinking that's the way to go, man. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, I hate being on. I mean, you and me are kind of in the same boat there. We both hate water, and so yeah, watching it like that would just be horrible. I'd be like looking around all the time, feeling like something's biting my ass or whatever.
That's right. Really? Okay. Well, I tell you what, man. I took a shower today and I hated it. So,
yeah.
But no, it's 50th anniversary. That's a huge high mark, and I'm a big fan of kind of the whole franchise. How about you? There's 4 Jaws movies. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I like them all. It's been a while since I've seen the 4th one. But 1, 2, and 3 are fun. Like one's a great movie. 2 and 3 kind of get it more into the B movie territory. But I mean, I like those kind of movies anyway. Of course, I feel like there's something about those part 3s that came out like in the early 80s, because they all did the 3D thing.
Yep.
And like Friday the 13th Part 3, Jaws 3D,
Amityville 3D,
Amityville 3D. Yeah,
Love it.
So. Yeah, I mean, there's just something about those part 3s that kind of get me anyway. And so, and I remember watching part 4 when I was a kid, actually, and it was kind of freaky. But I think watching it as an adult, I think it just kind of hits a little different. So, but I still need to watch it again sometime.
Yeah, part 4 played on the USA Network all the time, and like TNT and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember Michael Caine was in that one.
Yes,
and he said that he's never seen the movie, but
right.
he's seen the house that had bought his mother or something like that.
Yeah,
so,
he got a paycheck out of that one. He said he got a free trip to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
But, special shout out to my aunt, too, because if she hears this episode, she's a big fan of the podcast, so she will hear it. But, man, one of her favorite horror movies is the original Jaws movie, so maybe she'll be interested in, catching this in theater. We should go.
Yeah.
And in sticking with that theme, I'll tell you about another movie that takes place in the water. Andy, one of our favorite horror movies, 1954's Creature from the Black Lagoon. Well, Mondo is offering a pre-order on a Creature from the Black Lagoon figure that stands 13 inches tall and comes full with a set of accessories that allow you to transfer it from Creature from the Black Lagoon to Revenge of the Creature, which we know the Creature had some similarities. But, man, we're talking interchangeable heads, chest pieces, hands, and you're going to have a nice wallet for this, though, because this figure runs about $275.
Wow, yeah. Well, I mean, I could make a joke about a 13-inch monster, but...
Hey-o! I'm glad you did it and I didn't have to go there.
But, yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, that would be like maybe not a centerpiece, but that would be like a really cool thing to have in your collector's cabinet there.
It could. Could you drop $275 on a figure that you loved?
I don't know. Yeah, I would have to think about that one.
See, I'm more of the $275 for a rare Japanese horror laser disc. That's a lot more where I feel comfortable. Or a new tattoo. Hey, that would work.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's all about like what you collect, and like, I don't really collect action figures, but I mean, I'm sure it looks great. I'm sure it looks cool, especially with all the customization options that you mentioned. So yeah, I'm sure it looks pretty sweet.
But if I'm being honest, if I was collecting horror, even if I just had one horror icon statue, you got your Michael Myers, you got your Jason Voorhees, Creature from the Black Lagoon's pretty high on that list. But man, $275, give me a coupon.
Yeah,
or a Groupon. But how about you, man? What else you got?
So there's kind of this new trend about these Screen Life movies that are coming out. It's kind of like ones where it's like somebody recorded their computer screen while they're on like a Zoom call or something like that. So there's a new one coming out. Says it's called Bloat, and they just put out an exclusive clip for it. It's a Screen Life horror movie, and it documents a Japanese demon infection.
I'm in.
So yeah, says the producer of films including Searching and Unfriended, Timur Bekmambetov, I probably butchered that, returns to Screen Life Horror with Bloat, headed to select theaters and digital on March 7th. Oh wait, well that's a little late, but it says while you wait, Bloody Disgusting has been provided with an exclusive clip, so they give us a clip. So it says it gives us a small taste of the demonic infection plaguing the family at the center of the film. And so this is based on the frog-like kappa from Japanese folklore. So it says after the near-death drowning accident, a young boy's family is horrified to discover that he has become possessed by a legendary demon from the depths of the lake. As the family races against time to save the boy's soul, the evil monster inside the child tears the family apart as it seeks to destroy everyone in its path. So it stars Ben McKenzie from Gotham and Bojana Novakovic from Devil. And also has Malcolm Fuller, Sawyer Jones from Antlers, Kane Kosugi from Godzilla Final Wars. The writer-director is Pablo Absento. This is her feature film debut. So yeah, it's like I said, it's just an exclusive clip that they've released. So it definitely looks cool. I'm all about kind of like the found footage, Screen Life stuff. I think like the Screen Life kind of fits in with found footage, and yeah. So I'm interested to see what they do with this.
Did you ever watch Gotham?
No, I've never seen it.
Well, I've watched it all the way through a couple of times because I am a superhero fan, and that was a TV show that actually worked for me. You know, it was a Batman-based TV show that took itself serious and focused more on the villains, which, hey, that's why we all like superheroes, right? It's because they got super villains. But no, I bring it up because Ben McKenzie, man, he's a solid actor. So knowing that he's attached to this project, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I'm interested in checking it out, especially, movies that are based on real life folklore. That's pretty cool. So
That could be a theme that we do sometime.
oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're both I think you're a fan of Napoleon Dynamite like I am, right?
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
All right. so check this out. John Heder stars in sci-fi horror movie.
What?
The movie's called I See the Demon. And it says a surprise birthday party turns into a mind-bending nightmare, and director Jacob Lee Johnson's I See the Demon. So they debuted the official trailer this week, and it's going to world premiere at the Cinequest Film Festival on March 20th, with no release date at this time. Oh, that sucks. But John Heder, however you say his name, and Alexis Zalikofer star alongside Mallory Everton, Noah Kirshnick, and Archelaus Crisanto, Dave Martinez, and Max Steele Foster, and Oren Stainbrook. Well, a lot of weird names.
That was a mouthful, dude.
Says in the film, after seeing a strange object floating in the sky, Lucy comes home to a surprise birthday party with all of her favorite people. She's overjoyed, but when asked about her day, she realizes she can't remember anything about it. Her loved ones assure it's nothing to worry about, but as more unsettling things occur that only she seems to notice, they keep telling her to relax, enjoy the party, there's nothing to worry about. We'll take care of you. As the evening descends into madness, Lucy must discern reality from illusion, and whoever her friends are really on her side. All of this will reveal the forgotten trauma Lucy's tried to bury, and the secrets of a bizarre procedure she cannot understand. All right, so yeah, looks like John Heder is featured in the trailer. So I'm definitely curious to see what that looks like.
He's kind of like one of the last persons I would have expected to be in a horror movie, but it's kind of enticing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good actor. I haven't really seen him in much else besides Napoleon Dynamite. I think he was in a movie called...
he was in Benchwarmers.
Benchwarmers, that's it. That's the movie I was thinking of, yeah.
He was also in Just Like Heaven. I don't know, it's a rom-com with the...
Okay.
Did you see that one? It was
off
the tail end of Napoleon Dynamite, and he plays a very similar just kind of character.
Oh, there was that other movie, Will Ferrell, Blades of Glory.
Yes!
Yeah, I think I watched that movie like one time.
We can almost make it top 5 John Heder movies, man. We got to see this horror movie, and we can do it.
Yeah. So that's some cool things coming down the pipeline.
So, with all these movies on the pipeline, I want to talk about one that you have brought up before, but it is finally making its run, at least locally to me. You talked about The Rule of Jenny Penn. Remember that? That's the movie that Stephen King gave high praise to?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, man. So it's finally, you talked about it, horror movie with John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush. Well, it's finally playing, at least in AMC's. And our buddy Renee actually went and saw it, and he said that John Lithgow was awesome in it. And so, I don't know, man. It's kind of building my excitement for it.
Oh, man, yeah, that sounds great. Actually, it was funny. Me and my wife usually watch CBS Sunday Morning. It's just like it's a morning TV show where they kind of interview people and do different like news stories. But they actually interviewed Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow, and they were talking about this movie, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
So they did like a full special on it. I was like, wow, this is really cool. So
getting a little horror insight.
Yeah, and so the movie, they show some clips from the movie, and it looks like John Lithgow was really up in the creep factor, and that
I think we can steal the Hope Madden phrase "batshit crazy" for this one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does that too. Yeah, and it's really creepy. He has that little doll. I think the doll's name is Jenny Penn, maybe. And but yeah, he really looks like he's doing a good job being a scary dude, a scary old dude.
I've still watched no trailer. I know almost nothing about this movie except for what you've said, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm definitely pumped for it, and like you said, it's an AMC right now, so I don't know. Maybe I'll get out and watch it in the theater.
Does this look more like a thriller or, like a horror? They're the same, you know what I mean? Like you can call a thriller a horror movie, but I'm just wondering if, if this is going to hit that like satanic or serial killer or, where it falls.
Yeah. From what I saw, I would probably say it leans probably more into the thriller territory, maybe.
Oh, cool. Julie might like it then.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could surprise us. It could take a left turn and.
Well, I mean, I don't want to throw too many spoilers out there, but there was this one horror movie that lended itself to be a thriller serial killer type movie, and it took a wild turn and became a more demonic horror movie. So it went from being a Julie movie to a Dave movie, and though I'm not complaining, I just throw a bone where I can. So
yeah, I think I know.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The movie's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, so let's see. I ran into a cool article here. Did you ever play the video game House of the Dead?
Oh, hell yes. Yes.
The arcade game?
Yes.
So you know that like U-Bowl did like this movie adaptation like in 2003 or 4 or something like that?
Absolutely.
And it was kind of, I don't know. I didn't really care for it, but I don't know.
If you like Yuli Bowl movies, then it's your cup of tea. Yeah.
Okay, so the dude that did the Resident Evil movies, Paul W.S. Anderson, he's going to be doing his own version of the House of the Dead movie.
Oh.
So I'm kind of interested. He's going to be doing a video game adaptation, and I guess it's going to be based on the House of the Dead Part 3.
Oh, fantastic. That's the one I had on the original Xbox, and I even had the guns for it.
Yeah, so Paul W.S. Anderson, he's no stranger to film adaptations of video games. He did Mortal Kombat 95.
Yes.
He did Monster Hunter, and then all the Resident Evil movies. I guess he also wrote and directed Alien vs. Predator, but which isn't really a video game adaptation, but there was a Alien vs. Predator video game out. But yeah, so he's in the game. Okay, just talking about the game. Players you're like agents for this agency that kind of handles conspiracies, things that kind of threaten the world. So
X-Files.
Yeah, it's kind of X-Files-ish, I guess. So Anderson, he told Variety the script is almost done. So they're kind of like just in like the pre-production phases, it sounds like. It says we're aiming to shoot in the fourth quarter of this year. So later this year, he says, I'm really going to push the envelope on this one. It's going to be something different for me. He said he was asked if the movie was going to be full tilt horror, and he replied, yes, exactly that. It's going to be immersive and very, very scary. It'll all play out in real time, so it reflects the experience of playing the video game. He says the only time it stops is when you beat the game or you die. That's going to be the only way out. And he says he loved the video game back since the 90s. Back then, he was a big player of arcade games like House of the Dead and also Mortal Kombat, and that's how he kind of happened upon Mortal Kombat. And he's also playing House of the Dead at the same time. And he thinks that like now's the right time to put this movie out because it's kind of gained cross-generational fame because you have older players like him and us, Dave, like that played it originally.
Don't call me old.
And oh yeah, and then we also have teenage kids that are playing it now, I guess. And so.
Well, yeah, dude. I mean, what's really cool is how they have all these arcades now where they let you in for one price and all the games are set to play for free. I think that's where kids today are discovering House of the Dead, where we played it kind of in an arcade and it took all of our quarters. It's kind of cool now because we can pay $15, get in there, and finally beat this thing. And I'm happy to say Ed and I have done that. We've beat House of the Dead, man. It was awesome.
Cool, yeah.
Don't think you're getting away, Andy, because if there's ever an arcade, I'm going to drag you to it, and we're going to go beat some shit.
Yeah, no, I love playing arcade games, so yeah, I'm down. But yeah, no definite release date on that, so that's just something kind of in the little farther future to look forward to.
I'd probably say, if they're doing fourth quarter this year, or maybe Halloween next year, that'd be pretty good.
That would be really cool,
And
yeah.
you know what? I'm going to say it right now. So, if since Yuli Bowl did the original House of the Dead, then I think it's only fair that now that Paul W.S. Anderson is doing House of the Dead, I want Yuli Bowl to do a Resident Evil movie. That's right, people. You can be really mad and throw tomatoes at me, but I'm kind of a Yuli Bowl fan, but I know, that he's hated and his movies are considered bad, but, I like them. I'm a fan of Blood Rain, and so throw your tomatoes. I got an umbrella. It's okay. It's cool.
Yeah, man, no judgment here. So, cause you know the movies I like, so I can't really say anything. But yeah,
how come Yuli Boll hasn't done an Amityville movie? Where's that?
Man, you just put it out there, so he's
I
probably
did.
gonna.
I want to be in it.
It's out in the universe now, so it's gonna happen.
Hell yeah! Well,
I don't know. Is he still making movies?
I think he will continue to make movies until he dies. So even though it may have been a little while in between projects, I mean, you can't keep a dog down, man. So
yeah.
The right project's got to happen. I'm going to track Yuli Boll down. I'm going to go eat at his restaurant, and I'm going to be like, have I got an idea for you? I'm going to script it up, bro. I'm going to come up with some ideas. And he's going to be like, no, I like to do my own movies. And I'm like, cool, can I be in it? And he'll be like, I'm going to punch you in the parking lot. And I'll be like, cool. But, Andy, since you're talking about movies to come, I want to tell you about a couple movies that dropped on Blu-ray. You ready for this? I got 2 for you.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to admit I have not seen either of these, but they are kind of interesting. We got a 4K Blu-ray release of 1990's Revenge of the Radioactive Reporter. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay, judging by your eyes got real big. Like, what did I say? That sounds like something that Full Moon or Troma would have done, but they didn't. But yeah, literally, I've looked this thing up to see if there was like an alternate title. There's a couple of them, but it really does ride on the Revenge of the Radioactive Reporter. And so, it comes with a slipcover and a booklet, so it might be something worth checking out. I'll probably have to watch the trailer first. But the other one that I came across is a Blu-ray release of a Spanish psychological horror film from 1975 called The Killer Is Not Alone. And this one kind of interests me because I'm wondering, is it like a Giallo movie? If it's in that territory, I definitely want to see it. So just putting those movies out on people's radars. We got Blu-ray releases of Revenge of the Radioactive Reporter, as if that's not a tongueful, and The Killer Is Not Alone.
Yeah, I haven't heard of either one of those. So yeah, it's kind of like one of those blind buys or something. I don't know, but
yeah, it's nothing like a movie that we've heard of but never seen until now, huh?
Yeah, so speaking of first-time watches, I think that's a perfect segue into our main event.
The main event.
In a time of fear and suspicion,
You choose to admit your crimes before man and God?
his coming was foretold. Now, he is here.
You know the signs. You are bewitched.
He has the face of an angel,
Channel me a spirit.
the charm of the devil,
Hear me when I say he's evil. Evil absolute.
and the powers of a god. Satan also has one son.
For you are the first to have lain eyes upon the new Messiah.
Now, an enemy from his past,
Who appointed you executioner?
and a girl from the present.
You know what he's capable of.
Next time he's gonna kill me.
I'll not let him harm you.
Are the only hope for the future. This is the terrifying adventure that could set the world on fire. Warlock.
So yeah, so today's main event is the movie called Warlock from 19. I always get this confused. Is it 89 or 88? So it's something like that. It's 89. Yeah, that's right. And this movie stars Julian Sands, and that's about the only recognizable face that. Oh wait, I take that back. I did recognize one other face, and that was there was a character named Chaz.
Yep.
And you know who I'm talking about? It's
I knew
Kevin
you would recognize him for sure.
Kevin O'Brien, who was Loco in Friday the 13th Part 3.
Yes.
So I was very happy to see him in a different movie, in a pretty different role actually. He played a little bit different type of character in this movie, but directed by Steve Miner. So
I was wondering how you were going to feel about Steve Miner, because what an interesting director. This is a guy who has done your absolute favorite Friday the 13th movie, and if I'm not mistaken, your absolute least favorite Halloween movie. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, it's quite a broad, spectrum of movies that he's done. So it's it's interesting. I don't know. I think for me he's a little hit and miss, but like I said, he's directed one of my favorite movies, so I can't really judge him too much. So yeah.
But now you've seen Warlock, so I'm wondering where you're gonna fall.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is a first time watch for both of us, and I picked it out as this is my pick, so I take full responsibility for it.
Question for you.
Yeah.
What was your introduction to this movie? So you had never seen it before, but clearly you had heard about it.
My first introduction was actually like in grade school, back in the 80s when it came out. I remember one of my classmates was telling us about a movie called Warlock, and there was a scene where there was the tongue scene, and so that they described it to us, and we're like, whoa, that sounds pretty freaky. And then I had never seen it since, I'd never like sought it out or anything like that.
What has kept you from watching it?
I don't know. I don't know. I think because like I just wasn't really into like the the Warlock theme or whatever. Maybe I don't know. I just never really like sought it out. Never thought about it. But then I was kind of like looking at we were looking at Wishmaster, and I was thinking, man, movies that are kind of like this, and this one has a similar title, Warlock, Wishmaster. They're kind of the
both
name
start
of
with a W.
Yeah. And they're both kind of like fantasy kind of themes. So, like, well, I've heard about this movie. It kind of brought back those memories of hearing about it when I was a kid. And I was like, well, let's just pick it out. It's on Tubi. It's free to watch. So, yeah, I picked it out and we watched it.
We did, man. And, my introduction to this movie goes back to old school VHS days, because I felt like this trailer popped up on a lot of movies, and similar to other kind of fantastical horror films like Leprechaun, if I'm not mistaken. I think Leprechaun 3 might have had it, but looking at the production of this movie being New World Pictures and getting picked up by Trimark, we definitely had a lot of VHS horror movies that were produced by all those guys. And so it's no surprise that I'd seen the Warlock trailer so many times growing up, but something about it not being like straight up horror, I think just kept me at bay. So I was kind of happy you picked it, because it gave me a reason to actually watch it.
Yeah, I knew this was like supposed to be like a horror movie, and I just assumed it was gonna be. I didn't really know what to expect, I guess, and so I kind of went into it with a certain expectation, especially with the, memories from it being described in grade school and stuff, and pretty, pretty intense scene being described with the tongue and stuff, and so when we actually watched it. I was a little taken aback, honestly. I was like, okay, this isn't quite, and this is kind of my general feelings on it. I wouldn't really say it's so much horror. Like, maybe it kind of straddles that line where it's borderline horror, but I feel like this is more of like a adventure fantasy movie with, now, there are definitely scenes that are horrific in it, like I said, the tongue scene, and also the fortune teller scene I heard a little bit later.
A lot of the concepts are horror for sure.
Yeah, but there's also a little bit of comedy in here too, which is kind of it's interesting. There's like the total 80s vibe to it, which I really liked.
I feel like with a little bit of work, this could have almost been okay for kids to watch.
Yeah, I agree. There was a couple of scenes that had some things in it, but for the most part, it was pretty light on the violence, the gore. But yeah, kind of backing up to some of the actors. This also starred Mary Woronov, who played the fortune teller. Yeah, she was in Death Race 2000. She was in Eating Raoul, Night of the Comet, and I feel like she was in. Oh, she was in House of the Devil, Ty West movie that we both really enjoy.
Yep.
She was Mrs. Ullman, so that's cool. But I think she was in an older movie that I actually did back on World of Horror podcast.
Well, she was really active, man, in the 70s through the 90s for sure. She hadn't really stopped working for the longest time, because she had appeared in things like Terror Vision and Chopping Mall, which we love, Night of the Comet, and so she's a pretty big name.
Okay, so yeah, so that was another familiar face, and then also wanted to bring up the score too. The score was pretty good. It was Jerry Goldsmith score. And people will recognize the name. I mean, he did a lot of movies from like the 80s and 90s, like action, like a lot of B movies. He did the score too. So he's kind of like the B tier.
Careful. Don't be talking negative about Jerry Goldsmith. Now he's Star Trek royalty, dude.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Big for it. But I think,
true.
Were you gonna say a B-list John Williams?
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, since he did Star Trek, that's more. I would say that's probably more A-list. So
yeah, that's right.
We'll give it to.
He did Alien, man. Come on.
Oh, he did. Jerry Goldsmith. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Dude has done so many things. But
yeah,
you talk about people. Let me ask you a question about Julian Sands. Had you ever seen him before in anything? Because I actually had a repertoire with Julian Sands.
Yeah, the first thing that I remember seeing him in, it was Arachnophobia, actually.
Yes.
And, I didn't really know anything about him at the time. I was a kid, so I didn't really know that he had this kind of horror pedigree coming up before that movie. But
and he's like, he'd look really cool with a blonde ponytail.
Yeah, well, I think he did have one in Arachnophobia.
I can't remember. Yeah. It's been so long.
But, and he kind of plays that English guy. I mean, he is English, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, no, he played a pretty good character in Warlock. I think he fit the bill. And I don't know, but I don't know how crazy I was about the I don't know, not final girl, but she was kind of like our heroine in the movie.
Oh, Laurie Singer.
Yeah, she was
played
okay.
Cassandra with a K.
Yeah, Cassandra with a K. Yeah. Yeah, she was okay.
I see what you did.
Oh yeah. And then
she was from Footloose. I don't know if you ever seen Footloose.
Okay.
But
no, I've never seen that movie actually.
You never seen Footloose?
Never seen it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Better watch out.
You're gonna spring it on me sometime.
Yeah, like the end of May, maybe.
Oh. And then also the guy that was the witch hunter.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize. It seemed like he had been in some stuff. Richard Grant. Grant. He's been in a lot of stuff, but I don't really. He was in Hudson Hawk with Bruce Willis. That's cool. Which I guess that one kind of gets. People say it's not a great film, but whatever.
Yeah, he was in the Dracula movie from the early 90s.
Oh, okay. Cool,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, but tons of credits, man. Guy's super busy, too. So that's the thing about this movie is there's a lot of people in it that stay busy, and they're credible actors. Julian Sands, probably the best actor in the movie. I had a lot of experience with him because he was in Dario Argento's Phantom of the Opera, and he also appeared in Stargate SG-1, so that's really cool. But even though I had seen him in all these things, even in my heart, I knew that he had gotten fame from Warlock. But man, I don't want to shit on this movie because I think you and I are on the same page where we both were okay with seeing it. I might never watch it again. But, I understand that some people watch this movie growing it up and it's very nostalgic and they hold it near and dear to their heart. And I think, Andy, if we had saw this younger, we might enjoy this movie a lot more.
Oh, yeah, totally. I could definitely see this being like one of those UHF movies that they play on Saturday afternoon. And I could, yeah, if I know for sure if I would have seen this when I was younger, I would have totally had the nostalgia goggles for it. And I probably would have, really liked it. So kind of going through this movie, it's like some of the things that I thought of when I was watching it. The story kind of reminded me of Terminator in a way, because you've got the guy from a different time period coming to like modern day LA or whatever. And he's kind of a little bit different story as far as what he's looking for. But then you have somebody else from that same time period follow them to the modern day. And
could you imagine what the Warlock would have looked like in a leather jacket?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been cool. It would have been pretty cool. But yeah, so we get that kind of theme going, and he just pops up in like the our heroine's her living room. He's just like busting through a window, and she's like, "Was he drunk? Is he drunk? Was he like drunk driving?" Or that's what her roommate Chaz says, and she's like, "Well, I'd hate to think that he wasn't drunk and still did this."
Right.
And but yeah, I guess the movie starts off. We get this scene like back in like the 1600s. It's like New England, and I think it's like Boston. Kind of, where they had the Salem witch trials. Everybody knows about that, but this is kind of like going from the standpoint of Julian Sands' character the Warlock is actually a witch. It wasn't some like fake thing or just like a some kind of like political punishment. He was actually a warlock, and he actually did kill people and cast spells on people. And then you have the guy that plays the witch hunter,
Redfern,
yeah,
hell of a name.
Yeah, so they've captured him in the 1600s, and he's like set to be hung and then burned at the stake after he's hung, I guess they said. And but the Warlock manages to escape by some kind of magic. I don't know. They don't really.
It's almost like I was reading. Someone had said it was Satan that was propelling him into the 20th century.
Yeah, it's like Satan had a hand in saving him, because I don't think it was like a spell that the Warlock did. I think Satan just like intervened, and
right,
because he had something special for him to do in the present day, which was, he, and so that's interesting because Julian Sands is propelled into the future, into LA and Los Angeles instead of Boston 80s. I was like, man, why is he going to LA? He was in Boston, now he's in LA, which we do kind of get a little bit of an explanation for that. But he's not really sure why he's in present day, or in the future, I guess. And then he runs into. But he kind of knows what he needs to do to find out, which he does a little bit later on when he finds a channeler, like a psychic, a medium. But backing up before that, we have this scene that I was talking about, this infamous scene where the tongue scene, and that was involving our friend Chaz here. And it's like the next day, so they take him in. He crashes through their living room window. They like let him sleep it off in the bedroom. And the next morning, Chaz is making like an omelet, right? Or he's getting ready to make an omelet. And Julian Sands comes in, and they kind of talk, and then all of a sudden, like Julian's, the Warlock, he grabs Chaz and like he's gonna kiss him or something. It looks like a kiss. But what we find out,
it is L.A. in the 80s, eh?
Yeah, and I think it was kind of like hinted at that Chaz was gay. I'm not sure, but
I was getting some of that too. I think so, but I think a lot of it was the Warlock was wanting Chaz's ring.
That's
that
right.
scorpion ring that he was wearing, and the character of Chaz is like, I would let you try it on, but I broke my finger when I was younger, so I can't quite take it off. And our Warlock character is like, oh, I can get it.
Yeah, I can take care of that. He just like chops his finger off with a meat cleaver, and Chaz is freaking out, understandably. And then that's when the Warlock grabs his head and like goes in for, a lip lock, like he's
not after
him.
He hits it on the doorknob. Did you catch that?
Oh yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
Oh well, he goes to pick up the actor and he accidentally bumped his head on the doorknob.
Oh dang, okay. But yeah, he goes in for like this, he's like mouth to mouth, and he comes away and there's blood coming out of Chaz's mouth, and he just spits this tongue onto the frying pan, and it's like sizzling there. And then it cuts. I love this like smash cut where it cuts into Cassandra with a K making an omelet at her work, or somebody's making an omelet there at her diner that she works at. She's a waitress, and then she finds out that Chaz has been murdered.
Even the cops, when they're talking to her, they're like, somebody made an omelet out of them. I'm like, what are all these egg references?
Yeah.
You know how expensive eggs are now?
Oh, yeah. But, but But anyway, so then after this all happens, you kind of get the scene where the Warlock goes to a psychic,
A fake psychic.
Yeah, it's one of those like occult bookstores, like we saw in The Howling, which is funny. But it's kind of like this bookstore thing, and we have this psychic there that she's just finished up with a session. There's a group of people that are leaving, and she's closing up shop, and then she hears a noise from the back room, and it's the Warlock is there, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And they start talking, and he says he wants her to channel somebody. She's like, "Okay," she doesn't even argue. And
She's turned on by him though. There's something going on there.
Yeah, probably so. And I think it's the British accent.
Yeah, every time I talk to Neil, it happens.
Oh yeah. But this is kind of an interesting scene. Like he tells her to channel somebody. She's like, "Well, what's the name?" He's like, "Well, one of his names." It's like, "Oh, that's not good." It was like Zamiel or something like that. Or
yeah, and he says it's a father figure.
Yeah, so I mean so she goes to channel him, and of course you can tell that she's like acting at this. It's just totally a fake thing.
It was oddly erotic too, if I'm being honest. She starts like moaning and groaning, and she's kind of like going back and forth, and I'm just thinking, what is she trying to sell at this point?
That's right. Yeah, she's like moaning and stuff, and she's really kind of like hamming it up for the Warlock though.
Yeah.
And he knows right away that it's not real. And he's like, well, let's just wait a little bit. So for what? He's like, for the real Zamiel to appear, She's like, but I am the real Zamiel. And then doesn't he do something to trigger, or she just get kind of overcome with the real spirit or the real?
I think it just kind of happens.
Yeah, I couldn't quite remember. But then like her face, it's real this time because her face changes. She gets like the sharp teeth. She looks like she's
like, how do you fake that?
Yeah. And it's interesting. So he kind of has a conversation with her, and he's
Satan.
like, well, yeah, with Satan, and that's where he gets filled in on what his purpose is here in modern day LA, is to find the Grand Grimoire. It's been divided into 3 pieces, and he has to find the 3 pieces. And so apparently one of them is there in LA, and he's like, well, how do I find these pieces? She's like, let my eyes guide you. And so it's like, okay. So he proceeds to take a knife and dig her eyes out. It's like, oh man,
pretty cool scene. Originally I think they said we were supposed to see it, but
yeah,
they had to tone it down.
So with these 2 scenes, the tongue scene and the eyeball scene, we're like, all right, we're in for a ride. We're like, things are happening, and then
don't get used to it.
Yeah, and then the rest of the movie like nothing else really happened. I mean, he has that conversation with the kid, which is funny, with what happens. It's kind of funny. Like,
it's dark.
It's pretty dark. He needs to make a flying potion, right? And so he runs into this kid at this trailer park, and he's like just having a conversation with the kid. Seems like he seems pretty friendly, and they start talking about.
Yeah, there's a little bit of charm. I was kind of surprised by it, but they should have known better.
Yeah, because they're kind of playing this football video game, and and it seems like Julian Sands is like being his friend, but then like he asks the kid, he hears like a church in the background, like some choir singing. He's like, "Where's that coming from?" And the kid's like, "Oh, the church over there." And the Warlock is like, "Well, why aren't you at church?" And he's like, "Oh, my dad doesn't like that kind of stuff or something, and I've never been to church or something." So then that's when they get into the conversation of the Warlock says he's a warlock, or he's a witch, and the kid's like, "Aren't only girls witches?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Well, where's your broom at?" He's like, "I don't need a broom." He's like, "Well, I thought you needed a broom to fly." He's like,
"Haven't you ever seen The Wizard of Oz?"
Yeah. And so the Warlock's like, "Nope, I don't need a broom to fly." And the kid's like, "Well, what do you need?" and then that's when we, and then we get this whole scene of like these Cassandra and Redfern, they kind of meet up like earlier on in the movie. They kind of run into each other. I forget now how it happens. It's like he's like in her house or something, or I think
he's trying to track places of where the Warlock had bled.
That's right. So they find some of the Warlock's blood there because when he crashed into their living room, like he got cut by the glass, and so they found some blood on some piece of glass, and so
Yeah.
Redfern was able to make this compass thing where he put the blood on it.
Oh my God, which compass?
Oh yeah.
Fucking joke.
Yeah, he's like, which compass? She's like, that one. He's like, no, which yeah, it's kind of like who's on first kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so later on, Redfern and Cassandra, they team up. They say that, well, Cassandra has to team up with Redfern at first because the Warlock has stolen her earrings and her bracelet, I think, and put some kind of spell on her to where she is going to age very rapidly. So if
It's
she
like
doesn't,
20 years a day or something.
yeah, so she's like very rapidly aging. So she's very invested in finding the Warlock now. So she has to go along with him, and that's when they come up to the trailer park where that kid was having the conversation with the Warlock, and they find out that this kid was killed by a coyote, but we really know that the Warlock killed him, and we don't know why. But then Redfern's like, oh, he was making a flying potion.
Yeah,
Like,
it basically tells us that the Warlock needed to eat the fat of an unbaptized child. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
gross.
yeah, so that's what he did. But of course, this was not on screen. This was like off screen. And and that's really the last kill of the movie, I think.
And it's also important to mention that at one of these scenes, whenever the Warlock goes to Cassandra's, he gets the first piece of the Grand Grimoire that's hidden because it was in the antique table.
That's right. Chaz has like this antique table, and so he busts it open and finds the
He's
piece.
33% of the way there.
Yeah, and then the next piece is at this Mennonite farm.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, there's this. It's like a family that's there running the farm, but there's like a grandpa that's like an old school Mennonite or whatever, and he's the first one that realizes there's a witch around because he sees the milk is curdling or something, and
Yep, and the horses are sweating.
yeah, horses are sweating, and so he paints this pentagram on the barn.
It's
as
pretty
like
metal, man. I just got to say.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, nice.
It's like a hex mark or something. So now Redfern and Cassandra are driving by, and Redfern sees the hex mark. So that clues them in that the Warlock is there because they're using their witch compass to kind of find out where he's at and stuff. So yeah, so the movie kind of goes along with this third. It's kind of like a quest because the Warlock is trying to find the different pieces of the Grimoire, the spell book. And Redfern and Cassandra are looking for him, trying to stop him, and so the Warlock is kind of they kind of meet up along the way, and they kind of have some little battles and stuff, and they find ways to kind of slow down the Warlock, and everything from driving nails into his footprints in the ground to I forget what else. But
what did you think of the scenes where the Warlock has a throwdown and basically gives the evil eye to the Mennonite farmer? His eyes start bleeding.
yeah, Redfern's like, don't make eye contact with him, but it's too late. The Mennonite farmer was looking at him, and his eyes started bleeding. And
What'd you think of the wire work? Because Julian Sands is like hovering above the farm and flying around, and he takes that weather vane and like throws it at him.
yeah, I thought it was all right. It was fine. I mean, some of the flying scenes did look fake, but
I bet on the tube TV back in the day, it probably looked pretty good though.
yeah, I think it's comparable to like a Superman movie, something like that. The flying effects and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, they do end up. It's interesting. They do end up going to Boston because that's where the third piece of the witch book is. The spell book.
I thought you were gonna say because that's where the Red Sox play.
Yeah, the Red Sox. Yeah. But so we do get an interesting kind of like a little showdown in the cemetery, and it's interesting. Like they thought, oh well, the third piece is on holy ground, so we're fine. We don't even need to mess with it. But then they see a sign, and man, back in the 80s, it must have been popular to move graveyards from one place to another or something, because
I know, right? Who renovates a graveyard?
yeah, it's like we have this thing going on, kind of like a poltergeist. You have this graveyard that's moved. Of course, do they actually move the graves? That's the next question. But so all the graves are getting moved over to this other piece of land that's not holy ground, and so that's where they kind of get into some trouble. And so they have this whole, This kind of reminds me of Hocus Pocus.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing. Another reason why maybe I don't love this movie.
But so we kind of get this whole graveyard scene where Julian Sands or the Warlock can't touch the ground because it's hallowed ground, and so you get that kind of stuff going on. He's flying around and stuff. But yeah, I mean, they do eventually defeat the Warlock. They kind of have this thing where Cassandra with a K, she's diabetic, right? And so she has to take insulin. So she just happens to have these syringes on her, and so at one point he throws her into the ocean, so it's like salt water, and so she gets the bright. And so earlier in the movie, we discover that witches don't like salt. It's kind of like a protective thing against them. So she gets the bright idea of taking salt water and putting that in the syringes, and then she jumps on the Warlock and sticks that in his neck and injects him with salt water.
That's something that I should have seen coming, and I didn't predict it at all. So when that happened, it was quite refreshing. So I was like, "Oh shit, that's smart."
Yeah, was it Chekhov's gun? They show it earlier in the movie, and it's going to come back to. But this is Chekhov's syringe. But anyway,
yeah.
But this is kind of a cool effect because he catches fire and he burns up, and his skeleton is
Yeah, I gotta say that probably the coolest effect in the movie.
Yeah. So it wasn't bad.
What did you think of what would have happened? So the idea is when he gets the book, it'll reveal God's true name, and if he says it backwards, I believe, then the world would basically uncreate, right? Like we would all disappear. And I gotta say, for a story that was kind of going nowhere, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean that's some pretty high stakes there for Cassandra with a K and Redfern. I mean they've got to get this done, or else that means the end of everybody. And so he does get the pages all together, and it seems like the devil's going to be summoned, or the end of creation.
I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, what's his name?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the letters kind of formed, but I can't remember if it actually forms a word.
I don't think it finished. I think it was just enough to entice you, and then that's whenever our heroines. I was like, no, give me a minute.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we get the another interesting thing is Redfern finds his own grave in the graveyard.
Yes.
So that kind of freaks him out, and she's like, well, just don't look. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she opens it up, and then I told you not to look.
Yeah. But after they defeat the Warlock, Redfern, he kind of does a little swirly thing, and he goes into the
do a little dance. Now it's crazy because it seems like the characters get by tornadoes or something. They get carried off. It's weird.
Yeah, it's like that's how they travel through time, is this little tornado thing, dust devil thing, and
I wonder if that's a callback to Wizard of Oz, since they brought that up in the movie earlier.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, could be.
I'm smart.
But yeah, and then we get this little kind of end scene where we have Cassandra with a K. She has the spell book, and she finds the perfect place to hide it from any other witches, any other warlocks, and that's in this salt flats thing area where it's just like a bunch of salt. So she just buries it in this area and drives off. And I guess it's
typical ending for a 1989 film.
Yeah, it's happily ever after for her, I guess. I mean, she can go back to LA or whatever she's gonna do and keep working in the diner, I guess. I don't know.
As one does in Los Angeles. But interesting movie choice, man. I definitely think that it has a really good trailer. It has a good poster. It has a good tagline. Everything is there to make me kind of interested in it. And then after watching it, I think it just falls into the category where it's like, I'm glad I've seen it, but I'll probably never watch it again. But then again, if Julie wants to see it, I might sit through it again to see if it's better the second time. But, man, there's a part 2 and part 3, right?
Yeah, I saw that. So Julian Sands is in part 2, but he's not in part 3.
I'm almost wondering, because apparently the sequels are not related really at all. They're like standalone films. And I kind of challenge that. I wonder if part 2 is better than part 1.
Yeah, I think I saw some review where they were talking about part 2 was better. So
Oh, really?
I wonder if maybe they kind of fall more into the horror territory later on. So yeah, that's one.
Did you see the numbers for this movie? Because it was like I think it was a $15 million budget, but it only made $9 million in the box office.
Oh wow, okay.
So not too terribly well.
No, so I'm surprised they actually made sequels. I guess.
Well, if they went straight to video, lower budget, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes less is more, right?
Yeah, I bet you the sequels probably did better.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, you got me curious now. I might have to watch those now. Because they're both in the 90s, so 90s horror.
They're all on the free streaming apps.
That's right, yep.
Oh, cool.
But, yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, I mean, this was a decent movie. You know, just for, like, a movie, it's decent. I'm kind of like you, though. I don't know if I will ever watch this again. But it was a fun movie. It was fun.
Yeah, it was good to have a reason to check it out. And for anybody that tuned into this episode because they really liked this movie, I wish I had seen it when I was younger because I bet I'd like it a lot more. I bet
Yeah.
it would have a special place in my heart. But, you know, seeing it for the first time in my 40s, I can definitely watch an 80s movie for the first time and fall in love with it. But something about this one is kind of like if you had watched The Goonies for the first time now, there's something missing if you didn't grow up with it. And I think that's the same contendership.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
But yeah, like you said, if people want to check it out, it's on Tubi. So yeah, we have kind of a cool idea that we wanted to do for a future episode, and that is we want to do an Ask Me Anything episode, and so we invite all of our listeners out there to throw us questions, and it can be the sky's the limit, basically. I guess for the most part, I mean, I don't think there's anything too crazy that's off limits, but I don't want to.
no, go ahead and bring the crazy. I'm okay with it. Let's
okay.
go. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
fucking go is what the kids say. But yeah, man, I mean, that gets me to the part of our socials, you know, Andy. I've done an Ask Anything episode before on my old podcast, and I have to say it was some of the most fun I'd ever had because a lot of the listeners just kind of came out of the woodworks, and it kind of lets you know, hey, people are listening and they're curious about some things. And so, you know, you and I kind of tell our stories all the time, but there may be some things people can think of that we don't think to say, and I would love to see what those questions are. And so, Andy, you know, we got the Facebook page, we're on Instagram and TikTok. Those are our best places, but yeah, man, screamers out there, you know, if you're loving the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. We always would love a rating or anything. But if nothing else, jump in there and ask a question too. The crazier, the better. And I'm excited to see what people want to know.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it should be a good time for sure. So we'll that'll be like a future episode. So that gives everybody time to get their questions in, and you know, we'll be promoting it as time goes on, and you know, on our next few episodes. So that wraps up this episode. Until next time, I'm Abnormal Andy.
And I'm Phantom Dark Dave.
And thanks for listening to the Screaming Skull Podcast.